Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us for the eighth episode of FinTech Fireside Asia. It's a show where we bring you some of the brightest mind in the fintech space within Asia and sit them down for a casual chat. Today, I'm pleased to be joined by TM Lee, the co-founder of CoinGecko, who is arguably one of the crypto community's favorite data platform. I think what's really impressive about them is the fact that they serve over 10 million users and have about 200 million page views monthly, completely bootstrapped. I think from last week's crash alone, I probably contributed to 1 million of it from constantly hitting refresh. Welcome to the show, T. I'm glad to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Vincent.
All right, very cool. So let's begin by talking about last week's crash and this week's subsequent rally. Share with us your thoughts on this past one chaotic week that we've had in the crypto world.
Yeah, I think the correction that we saw last week was a much needed one. So if we saw like how the price of all crypto assets has been like on the uptrend, with all the positive news, and then we start to see a lot of excitement, people launching all kinds of weird projects, and it attracted a lot of people's attention. Amount of leverage has gone to the market has also went like skyrocket. And then with just a couple of like negative news from the Twitterverse and also from China and whatnot, caused people to find a reason to sort of like, close their position. And then because of the massive leverage, the liquidation sort of like push everything down, and people start, having to liquidate all their holdings and everything. And that sort of create that down spiral back to where we were at in January. So I think it's a combination of, the bearish sentiment that we saw recently and also the over leverage in the market that has caused this massive correction. But it is a much needed thing because the market has been overheated in the past 2 to 3 months.
Yeah, and I think personally for me, it just seems like a good discounted time to go in and buy some of the cryptos at my targeted price, right? But it just does seem like the perfect storm with all these various factors happening. Now, I just kind of want to go back to the CoinGecko story. And I remember meeting your co-founder, Bobby, back in 2014, 2015. And he was quite active in the Malaysian fintech community back then. I remember he was still probably attached to SimeW when you guys first started. So I think it's really insane, like looking back at that to where you guys are now and how you've really grown CoinGecko. It has been quite a journey. So maybe let's take a step back and talk about when you and Bobby started CoinGecko in 2014. Why did you do it? What was your vision? And how do you guys come about starting this idea? Talk to us about that.
Yeah, sure. So I think like myself and Bobby, the co-founder at CoinGecko, we both discovered Bitcoin like separately. Like we never knew each other prior to Bitcoin, right? That was how we sort of like got to know each other. Like I was sort of working in Singapore in a software company, and I discovered Bitcoin by accident, and it sort of like further validated the need for it because I was trying to look for a payment provider in Southeast Asia, like in Malaysia. Like I'm trying to start a SaaS business, and I'm trying to get a payment gateway at that time. But then the local payment gateway just said that you probably need like $500,000 in your bank account, you set up a company and everything to get it going, right? And I was just a developer, like wanting to build stuff and test an idea, and didn't manage to get that payment gateway. And then I discovered Bitcoin. I saw that it is possible to charge customers like globally, micropayment and stuff like that, which got me really really excited. So I started digging deeper and built like some micropayment services. And then my then CTO, my boss, said that there's a friend in Malaysia that are also interested in the Bitcoin. Why not you guys get connected and just explore ideas. And at that time Bobby was running a newsletter service, sharing news about crypto, right?
I
He
remember
curated the
that.
news, yeah. So he called it Altcoin Daily.
Yeah.
It was small enough that he could create personally like everything that's happened in the space. So we got connected, and then we sort of looked at the space, and we thought like, okay, we need to build something here because we see some reminiscence of early internet days. We just don't know when this thing will be big, but we thought like, okay, maybe one day it will be. So we're thinking like, okay, maybe should we start an exchange, because everyone was building an exchange in every local jurisdiction, or should we do something related to mining, because that was like one of the few things that you could work on. We realized both of us do not have the advantage to build in either one of those things, so we decided to build a data aggregator where we solve a specific gap at that time where there's many other like cryptocurrencies other than Bitcoin as well, but no one is paying attention to how active the developers community that's building the project, or how big the social media community discussing around a given crypto project. So the first version of CoinGecko that we launched in 2014 was really a aggregator for all these metrics and put it out together so that for the world to see. And because for ourselves, we are also tracking all these crypto projects, so we thought this would be useful for ourselves and also useful to other people as well. So that was how it started. It was a side project. We expect nothing from it. We just wanted to build something to solve a gap at that time, and also a little bit of an inclination at the back of our head that this could be a foundation to something bigger down the road, but we just don't know when that would be. Yeah.
Did it start out as perhaps a side hobby, as a side project? Did you like, and Bobby, expect from the start that you were gonna turn this into a real business in the beginning?
I think we never really had. So I think when we started, we thought like, okay, maybe it could be a business if things start to grow within a year or so, which we saw, okay, a little bit of a increase in traffic. But then of course at the time the crypto market was also just very much related to Bitcoin only, and also it was quite a bearish thing because that was right after the Mt. Gox collapse. So Bitcoin
Oh
price was
yeah, I
down
remember
to
that.
about Bitcoin price was down like $500-$600 and things like that. It was just hovering around there. We did think of this as potentially a way to segue into fintech, because a lot of the fintech community sort of like see Bitcoin as a technology that's related to fintech, right? Which is why you see myself and Bobby also, trying to participate in fintech hackathons and meetups, trying to see that if there's a way that we can bridge this. And we're also hoping that maybe one day, fundraising could be an option as well, which is why we started a company in this way. So I think there's a lot of thought process on how this could become much bigger than just a side project. And we lay down the foundation to see that way. But of course, throughout the entire journey, we learn a lot of things, ups and downs. And in the end, we just continue the way it is, which we can get to detail later if you want to cover that. Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. And I think that segues nicely into my next question and one of the questions from the audience. But before we go there, just to remind everyone tuning in live today, feel free to type in your questions on the YouTube page, the YouTube channel there, and then we'll try to address it as best as we can. So JJ is asking if you are planning to raise fund either from VC and ECF. But the other dimension that I kind of wanted to add to JJ's question is I wanted to understand whether there were any reasons why CoinGecko in these few years that you've been in operations, you are completely bootstrapped. Any strategic reason for that? And are you looking at external funding very soon?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of reasons why we did not ended up fundraising. I think number one is at the back of my head, or even in Bobby's head, like both of us have, we admire a lot the Basecamp model. We read like DHH and Jason Fried's philosophy, where it's possible to start a bootstrap company and things like that. So that's like one part of our head, right? And then the second one is when we did CoinGecko, we really think of it as a side project. We never really actively pitched investors. I mean, we talked to some investors at the time in 2014, 2015. A lot of them didn't really seem too interested, either in the crypto space or they were not too interested in the business that we are doing, because we are content based and maybe it's not, it's not something that they see that could be big, right? So we didn't end up, finding an investor that worked out for us. And then thirdly is also, this is much later in 2017, 2018. We saw that a lot of crypto companies that were heavily fundraised in 2014, they ended up closing their business just right before the bull market. That's because they raised like huge lot of money, and then their runway lasted for about 2 years or so. And then when the market, the bear market continues to run for 2 years, then they ran out of cash to continue their business. So I think these three combination sort of like tells us that sometimes fundraising could work as a double-edged sword, in the sense that you have this huge amount of money and then you're trying to deploy it, but if the market is bearish for a long time, then it's going to be a big problem for you as a startup. So that was sort of like the reason why we didn't end up doing it. And also coupled at the end, we thought like, how much we can push the company forward without fundraising. So we wanted to see like what we could do with what we have right now. As to whether we plan to fundraise at this stage or not, I think all options are on the table. Obviously, the landscape has changed tremendously right now compared to 2014, 2015. Things are more competitive and everything. We spoke to a couple of parties, but nothing is set in stone. It's not urgent for us to fundraise, but it's definitely something that we're just thinking about to see if it makes sense. We might do it. Yeah.
There is a lot of VCs tuning in today, so this might be good. How much are you looking to raise if you're able to disclose to us?
Not nothing on top of our head at this point in time. Yeah.
Okay, no worries. I'm sure you'll have further conversations with that. And I think who invests in the company is also very important as well, right? Because if we look at CoinMarketCap and the acquisition by Binance, I think to a large extent it has affected the users' belief in their transparency. So in terms of the kind of VCs you're looking for, are you any kind of specific investors you guys had in mind?
Yeah, I feel that number one is we are looking to try not to repeat that history, right? So we see CoinGecko as an independent player right now, and even down the road, we want it to be continue to be independent, right? No matter who we bring on board. So in the grand scheme of things, when it comes to VC as well, I would say that we were looking for VCs that would fill in the gap that we are not like good at, like whatever that we cannot do, like the VC can add value. That's generally where we are looking for, lah. Yeah. Because I think right now there's a lot of money like going around places. So generally all companies are looking for partners or VCs that can fill in the gap. Yeah.
Just smart money, lah, basically, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So we before I move on to my next question, we do have a question from the audience. Richard is asking, how do you guys came to choosing the name CoinGecko?
Yeah. So the real story is this is back in 2013, early 2013 or 2014, before we start CoinGecko. We at the time all the crypto companies had a coin in its name. So if you look back the directory, all companies that started in 2014, 2015, they all have coin in front and whatever. So we're just going through the entire .com list, and we told ourselves that we needed an animal to sort of like bring more try not to make this space so serious, because everyone is treating it like a financial space, right? And finance is always very serious. So we wanted a cute animal to represent this product. So this was at that time, lah. So we went through like a list of animals, and then so happened CoinGecko was one of the one that was available, and we just went with it. The other option that Bobby came out was Coin Teddy, but Teddy was like, it's a bear market, right? So you wouldn't go with that.
Yeah.
So that's how that came to be in reality. But down the road, people start asking like, start speculating like, is it because of do you watch like Wall Street Money Never Sleeps, like Gordon Gecko? Maybe you get the name from there, right? So we're like, okay, we can run with that. But the real story is we're looking for an animal to represent the brand and make it less serious when it comes to finance.
More approachable, I suppose. But looking at the coins that is in the market today, you have the Shibas and you have all the other variety of dogs in the coin. I guess it's not so far off from where we are today of having animals in
yeah, when you look at what's out there, it's I think we are just like normal.
Very cool. So again, CoinGecko started in 2014, right? And just to give people a sense of how long ago 2014 was, what was the price of Bitcoin when you guys started?
I think we started right after Mt. Gox collapsed, so it could be about 400 to 500, I think. And then it went as low as 200. I think the lowest was a 200, and then it sort of like hovered between 200 to 800 for 2 years until 2017 happened. That's when it breached the previous high, which is 1,400, and then it started like going like much higher than that. Yeah.
Yeah, it really puts things into context right now. The all-time high is like 60 over 1,000. So, you guys have done a pretty good job in terms of getting your user base, which, as I understand it, is probably about 10 million or so, right? So how do you secure, or how do you like attract so many users to your platform without having the obscene funds that we see some of the startups have?
Yeah, so I think this is also attributed to the nature of the space. So we started like fairly early in 2013, 2014, where the space is very uncompetitive. So anyone can just create a website related to crypto, put it out in the market, and if you know a little bit of SEO, keywords and everything, you're pretty much able to like rank for a lot of all these keywords that people are searching for. But also given that because it's not competitive, that means your search volume is much lower. But those who are looking for all this content are people who understand crypto or looking for crypto. So that's like how we got the early usage of organic users, right, through SEO. And then throughout the month when we were running, we learned that a lot of the people who are involved in crypto are global, right? So we could be people from Europe, Asia, the US. So what we ended up doing was at the very beginning, we translated all of our website into like 10 different languages, and also provide crypto prices in all kinds of currencies around the world. And then so that all these people who are looking up for prices of crypto in their own home country will find this relatable. And that's how we also got like some early use of users. And then even the things that we are doing up to today, which is like connecting with communities, finding out like what they're interested in, what they like to do. We've been doing that since early days, like when Dogecoin launched in I think 2014 as well. We are always there, like participating in the discussion. Just doing some general outreach. So I think the combination of that, the fact that the market was not so competitive, allows a company to bootstrap and build their early audience and grow from that foundation. So these days it's a bit different. Like it's very, very competitive. You need like some marketing dollars to stand out from the noise. So yeah, that's how it is done, I would say.
I guess it also helps, like from the start, that you guys began with kind of a global mindset of how to attract more and more users. So give us a sense of your demographic. Like, which are the countries that uses CoinGecko the most?
Yeah, at this point in time, it's probably very obvious. Like it started to the US as number one because it's the biggest population, and then followed by places like Germany, UK, Russia, Canada, and then down to maybe like to some extent Japan, South Korea, China, and then Indonesia. So it goes in that order. But I would say it's a 24/7 business. like because the market never closes. Like, even on weekend, you're seeing like going up and down, and then for us as a team, we also have to respond to the market condition at times, like either our servers go down or new projects get launched at odd hours. We have to respond to it quickly, and it's a 24/7 kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think that's the difference, right? When you invest in stocks, after the market closes, you can have a nice sleep. With crypto, you wake up, maybe you lose 50% of your portfolio. That's the kind of heart attack you have to deal with for the kind of high returns that you could potentially get. So I'm just gonna ask maybe one more question to give people a sense of CoinGecko. Then I want to get your thoughts on the crypto market and all things crypto related. So maybe before we move on to that, give us a sense of where you want to take CoinGecko. What's the ultimate vision for your company down the road?
Yeah, so the ultimate vision that we're seeing with the given trajectory and the direction that the market is going and the industry is going is that we see a future where there is going to be millions of tokens in the market. So you go to CoinGecko right now, you're only seeing like 7,000 coins or tokens, right? And then if I were to go back like 5 years ago, maybe it's a couple of thousand, and then maybe when we just started about 20 tokens, but we're seeing a future where there's going to be millions of tokens, and these tokens could represent all kinds of things. It could be in the form of NFTs where it represents real estate, artwork, game items, what have you, or even like fungible tokens that represents like shareholding in a protocol, in a network, in a company or whatever. So because of that future, we want to build CoinGecko as a aggregator to sort of like aggregate all these millions of tokens in a way that anyone can understand. Like they can get the information that they need, they can get the prices, the market data, and so on and so forth. So at this point, we are still really, really early stage because of our product and also the number of coins that we cover. But we see that future, and we're just going to build the product and the infrastructure for that kind of environment to prepare for perhaps a decentralized or a hybrid financial world where people will use tokens to sort of like represent all kinds of assets or things in the real world. Yeah.
So basically, it's a Bloomberg terminal of the crypto world. Is that what it is?
It could be. Bloomberg Terminal is a very different kind of product, which may not be suitable for DeFi or decentralized finance or whatever. But I mean that is the future we see, and the products will speak for itself as we move along the way, lah. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks for giving us a sense of where you are, where you guys were, and where you're planning to go. I want to move on to talking about the crypto space. And when I talk to a lot of mainstream finance folks, I feel like the understanding of the crypto space is still very limited. I still hear a lot of bankers arguing that Bitcoin does not have value because it's difficult as a mode of payment. So I feel there's a lot of fundamental misunderstanding of the crypto space, right? So if there are things that you wish the mainstream finance folks will understand about the DeFi space, the crypto space, what would that be?
Yeah, so I've also sort of like don't really want to try to convince people anymore like about crypto or Bitcoin. Like I think the best way is when they discover it themselves, and then they take down the path to understand it. So if the mainstream folks do not really get Bitcoin, then I think DeFi and all those is going to be even like scarier and even like mind-boggling, like I would say. But I think also the real issue right now is also because of the price, right? So people when they look at crypto, they always look at the price action. And then when the price action goes up like 50% in one day, that's like out of the ordinary for anyone who is in the stock market or in the bank in the financial sector. So obviously they will quickly point out that okay, this is something fishy. How can it go up like 50% at one go? And then after that, there's a correction. Then generally mainstream people will just say that oh no, it's a scam. Finally, this is dead. But we look at Bitcoin, it has been around for more than 10 years now, I think about 11 to 12 years, and he has survived the test of time, right? Obviously, there's going to be volatility up and down, but that's also because of the nature of the market, right? It is niche, it is much smaller, so the volatility is there. But if you compare it to a couple of years ago, the volatility is much lower. So the price is what everyone pays attention to, but you also got to ask yourself, like, why are people like trading this? Or why are people buying up Bitcoin in the first place? It's because there is some value. Like there are people who are willing to pay a premium to obtain this digital asset that they can take with them anywhere, and it's not controlled by a central authority. So that's what gives Bitcoin value, and people are willing to pay a premium for that. And then of course, when you look at DeFi and stuff like that, where the yields come from, it comes from standard financial stuff, right? You are transferring risk to another party that's willing to take it, and they're paying you a interest. But you're all doing that using blockchain, using a decentralized setting. So I would say like these are like the basic like principle of why people are speculating into this or why people are buying up this in the long term. But I would say that you probably have to look beyond just the price action and try to understand like what's driving the demand, and that will probably give you some of the answers to that.
Yeah, I guess the other dimension to look at this is that when you have performance that outperforms the S&P by several multiples, you have to expect some degree of volatility, right? Chifeng is pointing out that some bankers are supportive as well. Yes, I've met a lot of bankers who are big crypto heads as well. But maybe I just want to play a bit of a devil's advocate over here. Obviously, with Elon Musk being more and more active into the crypto space, I think earlier it had a very positive impact of the price. But how decentralized are cryptocurrency when one individual has so much impact on the swings, right? What are your thoughts on public figures like Elon Musk, who's increasingly becoming the new McAfee of 2021?
Yeah, so I think this is sort of like a replay of history, right? So if we look at Bitcoin in let's talk about maybe 2012 or 2013. So the Bitcoin price was dictated by Silk Road. So when Silk Road was busted, the price of Bitcoin is down, right? Went down. So it's dictated by Silk Road. And then after that, it is dictated by Mt. Gox, the exchange. So Mt. Gox is the one that sort of like determined the narrative of the market. And then later on in 2017, 2018 is the ICOs, China. So there's always this one story that sort of like dictate the market. But as you move on over the year, right, it starts to detach away from that story because either people start to understand things better or basically maturity of the market, which then reduces the volatility based on this single story or single entity. So what I'm seeing right now with the current Elon Musk situation is that perhaps in the months to come or years to come, this wouldn't be a concern anymore. Like he wouldn't be the sole influencer of the price because people have sort of like moved on and understood this much better, and the market has gotten more efficient in that sense. But I also would cautious also like right now, not just crypto, right, but even the stock market, influencers on YouTube or Twitter are sort of like driving the price of stocks, with Wall Street bets and stuff like that. So there is a shift in terms of how people are trading things, and you don't look at fundamentals anymore. You look at this thing called pumpermentals or momentum trading and things like that, which resonates very well to the crypto space if you compare to stocks, because in some sense, crypto is heavily speculated. Some projects they haven't really launched their product yet, or they haven't. The token price today is not a reflection of the actual volume or the actual revenue that they generate. So that makes it more super volatile in comparison to stock, where there are some group of people who would say, let's look at fundamentals and things like that. And we are still yet to discover what is fundamental in crypto. Like if you look at Bitcoin, for instance, like how do you value Bitcoin? It's just maybe not possible even up to today. Yeah.
Okay. And I think, in terms of Elon Musk's behavior, it's not something that's unique to cryptocurrency. The moment he started talking about cryptocurrency, I kind of anticipated for this to happen, because some years back, it's like, Tesla prices feel a bit high. I mean, obviously, the SEC was not happy about that. I mean, if he was going to do that with his own stock, I'm sure he was going to do that with cryptocurrency as well. I kind of want to continue my role as a devil's advocate for a bit longer. So, of course, at one point when he was pumping up Dogecoin, the market cap, I think, at the highest, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I can't remember what's the exact price, was probably hovering around 70 odd billion, right? The market cap.
I don't remember the market cap, but like 70 cents, I think, per Doge, 7 to 80 cents, I think.
The reason why I brought up market cap is because at that point, the market cap is actually higher than Moderna.
Okay.
Which is a company that's literally creating something that we really need right now. It's like something that's saving the world without exaggerating. So has the crypto world gone mad? I mean, how is it that a meme coin is deemed more valuable than a life-saving product?
Yeah, so that's why we are seeing a correction in the last few days, right? So obviously, when that happens, you ask yourself, like, is this sustainable? Like the only way for Dogecoin to maintain that market cap that's higher than Moderna is that people find the joy of buying and selling Doge at that price, and the constant joke that comes around the whole like circle of the Doge community or whoever who is in that monitoring that to be more valuable than Moderna lah. It has to be that way. But of course, some people would choose to take profit and then start like selling it off, and that's why it wouldn't stay there for too long. Like, a lot of the crypto projects also, like when they hit a certain market cap, they really need to do a lot to maintain that position lah. And due to the volatility, it's typically just a metric that you can look at, but it fluctuates from day to day. Yeah.
But I guess maybe they did believe that laughter's the best medicine. That's the way with the internet, right? I remember the early Kickstarter days. There was a guy who raised probably a couple 100,000 in his crowdfunding campaign to make pasta, right? So people thought it was funny. They put money in it. I guess in the same sense, a lot of these things were driven by the meme economy. But I do hope, the crypto space would rely more on fundamentals in the future, because I feel like there's still a lot of perhaps inexperienced retail investors looking into crypto assets like Dogecoin and thinking like, hey, I could make some money here, and they end up losing their pants, right? So I really hope that there's something that can be fixed, not to say fixed, but improved in the future in this crypto space, right? So before I move on to the next question, just maybe to take some questions from the audience. We have Jason here who's asking about central banks providing tokenized fiat currencies. What's the future of crypto and exchanges? I guess what Jason is asking about is CBDCs and how it would impact crypto exchanges. Do you have any views on that, Tia?
Yeah, so I think on one hand, we have heard of some countries starting some research or even like started their CBDC, central bank digital currency project to have a fiat currency issued digitally. How that will be done, it also could differ from country to country. Some of them will probably be just a centralized database in some way, or some could be a blockchain by itself that has this digital currency issued. So that's like one part of it, right? The second one is we're also seeing a lot of stable coins being issued, like USDC, USDT, DAI. We sort of like tries to peg to the US dollars, and it's issued by a third party. So obviously the third party one, the private stable coins are traded on the exchanges and whatnot, but whether the CBDC is will be traded on exchange, I think number one, it needs to be a blockchain by itself, right? Whether it's issued on Ethereum or not, but most likely they will have their own blockchain. Like they wouldn't give total freedom of their fiat currency out there, because that's going to be bad. Like we learned that from history, right? Um, so when that happens, right? We don't have the technology at this point in time to bridge at least like tightly bridge all the blockchains properly. I mean, we are working on bridging technologies at this point in time, but I think down the road there will be ways where different blockchains will talk to each other, and there is a possibility that you could move your central bank digital currency to an exchange and trade. But that's also given the fact that if governments would allow that, lah, because I think right now they're also afraid of capital control and capital flight and stuff like that, which I think what they're really concerned is they just want to have for governments or regulators, they just want to have a radar on what's happening and where the money is going. And I think if the checks are done there, then they will be fine with that kind of integration with the exchanges. But we could see a coexistence of a centralized digital currency and a decentralized digital currency, and they will both compete against each other. We could see that future as well. Two different kind of world, or it could be a hybrid. Some choose to play by the rule, and then there'll be a hybrid. But you also see that two different extremes. Yeah.
I guess the caveat is being on the blockchain, right? Because as we can see with China's DCEP, digital currency, it's not even on the blockchain. So that's also one consideration as well. But you talking about all these CBDCs being traded, is it intended for it to be traded? Because it is really more of a payment instrument rather than an asset compared to a lot of the cryptocurrencies out there, right?
Yeah, so which is why I draw a comparison with stablecoin, and also for the question posted about what would that mean for crypto exchanges, right? But I guess like the original intention for CBDC is mainly for governments to better have monetary tools, like for things like pandemic or when you want to disperse out cash to all of your citizens. Like right now, you have to go through third party and third party wallets to disperse it, or you have to get people to send in a letter. It's just really archaic and doesn't really work very well with the current system. So by having a CBDC where it's native digital currency, the governments have total control on like inflating the supply or deflating the supply or giving out money to certain individual. It can be good and bad, but that's a centralized world that you want to live in. Like if you want to have exposure to that, then that's the game that you're playing. Whereas if you look at other kinds of blockchain assets that the decision on whether to inflate the currency or deflate is decided by the token holders or the governance tokens holders, right? So you can see that there is a sort of parallel between what can be done, but of course the purpose and who pulls that lever is also very different. Yeah.
Okay. I guess if you want to be nefarious about it, one of the key things could also be for surveillance as well, and that's a big concern for everyone.
Yeah.
But that's a topic that we could probably go on for about 12 hours. So let's move on to the next thing before we drag on with that. So there are a lot of big things that happened in the first quarter, right? And of course, obviously, one of the biggest stories of 2021 was Coinbase going IPO, and I guess number one, I want to get your views on how important this story is in terms of its long-term impact in the cryptocurrency world. And do you think it's overvalued? Because if I recall correctly, the valuation is higher than some of the big US banks.
Yeah, so I think it's an important milestone for crypto in general. When we started CoinGecko in 2014, I never thought like we would see a crypto company going public, right? So it's definitely a good thing to see that happen, and then that will probably set the tone that crypto is becoming more acceptable or understandable by the mass. Like people were very scared of Bitcoin; they don't understand what this is. But when you have a public company that deals with Bitcoin, then that means that the comfort level is there, and we will see a trickle down effect, right? So a trickle down effect could be more crypto companies going public, and thereby meaning that people are more open to all these kind of tools and services or different infrastructure services that are supporting the crypto economy. And then we also starting to see that banks are coming in to facilitate the service, right? So we saw like DBS, I think they made a bold
for sure,
on wanting to serve the high net worth individual and then you never know, like down the road, they will start offering that to other customers or other clients as well. So I think that itself is a very important tone in the mainstream world, in the traditional finance world, and also for the crypto companies, for them to go into go public down the road, if that's the option that they choose to take. Your second question was on, what was that already? Like, was it
the valuation? Do you think it's overvalued?
Oh yeah, the valuation. Yeah. So I think when they hit the market at that time, I think it was quite high. I think it was like $4 to $5 per share. I can't remember what's the market cap, but we have seen about like a 50% correction now, right? So I think now it's still pretty high. If you compare, because right now there's not much of comparable, right? The only comparison you can make is, okay, maybe other stock exchanges and whatnot, but also the other crypto exchanges that do not have publicly traded stocks, but they have tokens, right? So you can do a bit of a comparable there. It seems to be in line with the crypto market right now. So there could be a possibility that if the bearish sentiment continues to run, there could be a further correction, because we have seen that crypto companies generally do well in the bull market, and then in the bear market they start to, volume will go down, interest will dissipate. So I think it's going to be correlate with the crypto market at the start. Maybe down the road it will detach itself. So when it went to IPO at the time, it was at the height of the crypto market, and that's why you probably see that the market cap was insanely high. But then it has gone down a little bit since then. Yeah.
And you brought up how banks were getting into it. I remember it's probably around late November, late December. That particular month, for some reason, all the banks started announcing their support for cryptocurrency, right? And closer to home, like you brought up, DBS, they are providing this service for high net worth individual and even institutional clients, I believe. And the CEO, Piyush Gupta, was actually super bullish on it during the press conference. And I guess my question to you is that, do you foresee a near future where a lot of these kind of institutional clients start to look at cryptocurrencies as a kind of a treasury thing for them, like how MicroStrategy is doing, how Meituan is doing, and how Tesla is doing it as well? Do you see that kind of adoption, and what is the time frame you're looking at for that kind of adoption?
Yeah, I think that we saw, like, in the past few months, companies announcing like acquisition of crypto assets and putting into their balance sheet. I think right now, I think on CoinGecko we also do a bit of tracking for that. It's not just Bitcoin; we're seeing Ethereum as well as being an asset of choice. So I think the narrative that they are putting on is that they want to acquire some portion of this to weather through inflation and stuff like that. But also they probably saw how well the asset is doing, and they want some exposure to that, right? So if you're a $1 billion company, you put, like, say, $1 million or $10 million into Bitcoin and just sit on it for 10 years, there's a chance that that 10 million could grow to, like, 100 million or whatever, and hedge against whatever correlated assets that were part of your business, and you want to use that to hedge again. So I think we only mainly saw, like, US companies doing it, to some extent, Hong Kong or China companies doing it, one or two of them there. But we should start to see more and more companies around the world putting a small amount into their balance sheet, because it really doesn't hurt to hold some amount. And Bitcoin has been around for 10 years, and it has survived the test of time. It has performed really, really well in the last couple of years since the last bear market. So I think a lot of high-net-worth individual institutional clients are asking, like, hey, why isn't Bitcoin in our portfolio or strategy? At least a small amount. So that's probably going to be upward trajectory to see companies, like, adopting it as part of their balance sheet. Yeah.
Do you foresee more and more laser eyes in the LinkedIn profiles then?
Oh, I'm seeing it right now. The price goes back up, I guess.
Yeah, let's move on to the next question. I guess the other theme that has emerged this year, especially, and again, probably something we could talk about for hours, right? NFT is a really fascinating subject. A lot of interesting developments. So my question to you is, how do you see NFT developing? Because you guys also have increased your focus on spotlighting some of this NFT stuff. Do you think it's here to stay? What's the long-term impacts? How do you see it reshaping industries that it impacts?
Yeah. I would say the NFT is definitely here to stay. And the reason for that is also because NFTs started like way back in 2015, 2016. There were a couple of people experimenting with the idea of NFTs on Bitcoin. Like they hacked Bitcoin to sort of like create a non-fungible token. And then when Ethereum came out, it became easier to do it. And then people also, find ways to create non-fungible tokens. So there was a community already built since then, and it's all organic all the way until the recent explosion that you saw. So it's not an overnight thing. Like people have been building infrastructure, experimentation, which led up to what we saw earlier. Now, why art was the killer use case is because number one, it's easy to understand, and number two, it's speculative by nature, which again attracts eyeballs and everything, right? But so speculation aside, with regards to art for NFT, NFT by itself is basically just a technology, right? You can treat it as a tokenization of something, but you put a unique characteristic to it. And there's been a lot of use cases other than art, like you're seeing game
Before we
items.
go on further, before we go on further, just for the benefit of the audience who may not be so familiar with the term NFT, maybe you could provide a bit of a breakdown, basically what it is.
Yeah, so NFT stands for non-fungible tokens, and it's basically tokens that have unique characteristic to it. So if you look at Bitcoin, it is fungible, where I can exchange one Bitcoin for another Bitcoin. I don't really care what Bitcoin that is, for example. There's a bit of caveat there, but yeah, you can take it that way. When it comes to NFTs, it's like trading cards, right? Like my rare card and your common card, they're not the same, and we can't exchange it directly, even though both of them are the same, like Pokemon card, for example. So taking that trading card aspect into digital world, that's what NFT is. So to continue from what I mentioned earlier, like NFTs are currently also used to tokenize game items. So currently when you play your mobile games or your online games, your game items sort of reside in the game universe that the developer has created, but you have no way of taking that game item out and trading it out into the outside world, for example. So NFT is one of those things that you can use to do that. Second is could be land titles, right? Obviously, there's no NFT for real world land titles today, but we are seeing people playing experimentation with virtual land titles. I could buy a plot of virtual land somewhere, and I have an NFT that represents that I own it. And using an NFT, I could vote for governance. I can put the land out for lease and things like that. So the technology itself is flexible. You can use it for everything and anything. People are doing all kinds of stuff, which is why I think it's going to stay around. And the art thing is really just an outlier, and which attracted many people's attention, which also then feeds back to the whole crypto ecosystem, right? Like people initially, when you talk about crypto in general, people are not interested in it. But when you talk about artists doing something on crypto using NFT, people start to follow and understood and learn and understand more what this is really is. So it sort of attracted an audience that you never thought would come into crypto. Yeah.
It's quite interesting, and I mean, you see guys like Eminem even raising their own NFT. Even the creators of Rick and Morty and that show Community, they are coming out with their own NFT for a show, which they do in production at Fox. So there's a lot of interesting things that's happening, right? So I kind of want to go back to my question before I interrupted you and ask you to talk about the basics of NFT. So what do you think is the impact long term in art, music, entertainment, or all these industries? What do you foresee?
Yeah. So so I think like you mentioned about some of these artists using NFT to like getting to NFT, right? So I think they saw that I mean, number one, the opportunity, right? For them to make some money or even like connect with their the artists, connect with their fans or whatever. But we're also trying to see like some memes that were created like 10 years ago or 5 years ago being turned into NFT, right? So I think the reason for that is also because they realized that they were a meme, but they never really get to financially they never really get to take advantage of it financially, right? So they finally found NFT as a way to sort of like cash out from that meme moment that they were part of, lah. So I think to answer your question, right, what we are seeing right now is that it is possible now for like say artists, musicians, entertainers, or whoever to use NFT as a way to capitalize on their digital content, right? Back then, when you create a YouTube video, a cover music or whatever, you don't get paid, right? Unless the platform takes in donation or you get paid through ads. But right now you can sell your NFT directly to people who are really a fan of your work. And then you can better connect with all these people who also, buy your NFT, for instance, and do something more beyond that. So I think that opens up economic opportunity for more and more people. And I think especially like for these regions, Southeast Asia, Malaysia, Philippines, or Thailand, like it's still hugely untapped. In Philippines, there's an interesting situation there where it's a group of people who are playing this game called Axie Infinity, where they play the game, they earn some tokens, which are resources
Yeah, I read
in
about
the
that.
game. Yeah, and then they have NFTs as well that they can then sell, which they can make some pocket money to survive the COVID, the tough time in Philippines because of COVID and everything. So I think this has sort of like changed the landscape a little bit, opened up a lot of opportunity for a lot of people, and also better to help entertainers connect with their audiences. Yeah.
That's very interesting. And of course, I have to resist the urge of asking 15 more questions about NFT because there's so much to talk about. But I'll ask one more question, right? So I think moving art to NFTs is it's just a form of digitalizing it, right? And the art world is largely the same in a sense that it appeals to people who have excess wealth and the art piece resonates with them. And sometimes, we look at the art piece, us common folks without millions and billions of dollars, it's like, why did this guy buy a white painting for a couple of $1 million, right? And we're seeing the same thing with NFT art. So do you think a part of this rise in NFT art is because those people who got rich off crypto don't really resonate with this classical art, but they see something that's created within the crypto space and that, this resonates with me. This, for me, is a good way to flex or to reflect my status symbol, which I have achieved through crypto. Is that something that's happening, you think?
Yeah, so with the current boom in art is definitely because of that status factor lah. Like there are people who have made because the crypto boom sort of started sometime mid last year. So there are some people who made like quite a lot of money from there, and they decided to acquire some of this NFT just to flex. And it could also be the social status of the new century, right? Like it could be that the Gen Zs do no longer see value in like watches, cars, or membership club in a golf course or whatever. Like they tend to buy like skins in-game skins, avatars, just to show off that they could own it. It doesn't give them any special ability in the game. Like you don't get to shoot better, you don't get to run faster. It's just a completely cosmetic outlook. And it seems to be that this generation resonate with that, and it translates very well in this NFTs art world. And also with regard to NFTs as well, it's also a very crypto native thing to sort of like use your crypto wallet and bid for an artwork and then see whether you can outbid someone. Whereas if you bring that to the over, you have to go to an auction house, which is very much something that a crypto holder wouldn't generally do. So when right now we're seeing Christie's and Sotheby's like auctioning off crypto artwork, right? It just seems a little bit off tangent, but I guess they are sort of like evolving in times as well to bring in digital asset or digital art into their suite of stuff to be auctioned out as well. Yeah.
You brought up an interesting term, crypto native, and to me that is somewhat similar to how we describe the Gen Z, the Gen Y, where it is described as digital natives, and then you have the boomers who's described as digital migrants, right? So when you use the word crypto native, are you also using that term in the same sense that you foresee that there will be a generation that's going to be eventually classified by marketers or people who do all these statistics as crypto native and crypto migrants? Is that the thinking behind that term?
Yeah, I suppose I took it for granted because this crypto native term is sort of used within the crypto circle. Maybe it hasn't gone out yet, so I really don't know whether that time will come. But that is really used to also sort of like segment out users who are very familiar with using MetaMask, which is a crypto wallet, or very familiar with keeping their crypto safe. They know what they're getting themselves into, and because they live and breathe, and they use the decentralized exchange. They're very familiar with all these tools, and this user base is also very different than the general user base who do not know how to use MetaMask and they are on the exchange. So I guess like this is just one way to segment out. Obviously, after a while, they will start to explore more and more services and tools, and they will be more familiar. And yeah, I guess I sort of like take it for granted to sort of like label it that way, but it is sort of a term that's being used to describe someone who is very familiar with the whole crypto tools out there. Yeah.
I think that's fascinating, right? Because right now we're helping our parents with how to get on Lazada, how to get on Shopee. Maybe one day the children will be helping our generation on how to use MetaMask and whatnot, right? That would be an interesting future. Okay,
Yeah,
so
it could be like I mean the way
yeah,
I see it right now is like internet in 90s, right? So
yeah,
back then when you're using the internet, you were so fascinated that you were able to find some very strange community somewhere in the internet and join them and resonate with them, or you join an online game and start like playing with someone across the ocean, right? So I think we are seeing very similar stuff, like someone just starting to use MetaMask. They figure that it would benefit them in a way or solve some of the problems that they're seeing with owning stable coins to hedge against inflation. So there is that discovery moment, and then over the years, it will start to cross the chasm, and there will be early adopters, late adopters. The usual technological cycle seems to be replaying again in crypto. Yeah.
That's very fascinating to think about. I've never really considered it from that angle. Now, we are running short on time. So what I want to do is try to take a few more questions, and then I'm going to get your closing thoughts on everything. So maybe we can start with this question over here. So this user is asking what your thoughts are on the cryptocurrency future in Malaysia. And I think it's specific to cryptocurrency as a form of payment acceptance. Do you foresee a near future where banks will accept cryptocurrency or retailers will accept cryptocurrency on a white basis?
Okay. So I guess the first part to set the tone for this question is I think for Malaysia in general, we are doing pretty good. Like we got the Securities Commission on the ball on this whole crypto stuff, right? They're giving out licenses, making sure that regulated exchanges are operating. So right now you can actually go to an exchange and start buying crypto, right? Which is a good start. As to whether it will be accepted as a form of payment, I guess the first question you want to ask yourself is, are you willing to spend your Bitcoin to buy a cup of coffee in a
Not me,
factory,
man.
right? Right. So no one is doing that, right, at this point in time. So I guess it comes down to market demand as well when it comes to governments or even like banking institutions, whether they would do it or not. If there is sufficient demand that people want to own Bitcoin and then spend it, and the market force is large enough, then I guess in a free economy, they will probably do it at some point. But of course, there's also a governmental force over there that it may not be in their favor as well, because what would then happen to the ringgit, right? So in a free economy again, the government would then have to step in and sort of like step up their game in terms of managing their ringgit inflation, or even like digitizing their ringgit perhaps to compete with Bitcoin, for example. So I think it wouldn't be a straight answer. It all depends on the market force. But I think in the global scope of things, you'll probably see more and more companies be more open to accepting Bitcoin, and you are free to spend it if you want to. Yeah.
I think there was a time where people would buy pizza with Bitcoins, but I think that time has kind of passed, hasn't it? I personally wouldn't spend my Bitcoins as a payment, but
then again, there is stable coins, and people do spend
for sure,
their stable coin.
yeah.
The only problem right now is the transaction fees are still pretty high. But down the road, I think that will be solved, and eventually, you can just transact your stable coin. But it's another separate issue to that, which
for sure. I mean, of course, Bitcoin is not the one that's designed for that purpose. There are other stable coins who may perhaps be better suited for that kind of function. So I'm going to move on to another question, and then maybe we can do some closing thoughts. So Adrian is asking for your opinion for app creators. Do we focus on decentralized apps now, given that there is unclear direction by the government, or will it be better to focus on conventional methods? I'm assuming he's talking about just normal apps, I guess.
So I guess there are two kinds of applications that you can well, I mean, okay, 2 to 3 kinds of application you can work in blockchain, right? And I think
Mm,
the good majority of them do not require sort of like permission from government, like more like permissionless innovation.
mm,
At least try to find an idea that avoids regulation or stuff like. Because if you do that, then you have to sort of like be in compliance. There's a lot of work that you need to do to ensure that your stuff plays well with regulation and stuff like that. So I think number one is to find ideas that are outside of that so that you can continue to
mm,
just build and experiment with small ideas. And then number two, whether it should be an app or a dApp. If you look at the crypto space by itself, a good majority of the services are still centralized. So
mm,
uh, so I think people are still very comfortable using centralized service. So you don't really
mm,
generally have to just lean over to building a dApp just because you want to be on the edge, lah, right? If that's what the market really needs, then you should go ahead and build it. And with regards to what kind of products to build, I think there's a lot of problems to be solved in this space. Even for us as a data aggregator, there's a lot of
mm,
we're tracking market data at this point in time, but there's also a lot of data in say that's happening on the blockchain that people do not yet interpret, or there could be certain signals or stuff like that. So, a software developer, even if you don't really have uh, background in building smart contracts or whatever, you could
mm,
jump in and build an app that
mm,
analyzes all this data and uses all the usual big data solution that Google Cloud or Amazon offers and provide a service or a product out there. So that is something that I feel that is more
mm,
palatable for new developers who are coming in from the mainstream application development world. Obviously, if you want to build a dApp, you can. You just need to pick up smart contract languages like Solidity, and
mm,
then uh, figure out like what is it that is worth decentralizing. Like, is it a protocol for swapping tokens or lending and whatnot? But obviously, if you build that kind of product, then eventually you will have to figure out regulation. Like, how are you going to make sure that your
mm,
product is, or rather, the way you structure things, uh, takes the appropriate regulation risk, right? So I guess as a developer, your options are out there. Like, you can just go ahead and just build anything, and that's sort of like gives you the excitement of what the internet used to be, right? Permissionless development. Like, you can just build an app, put it on Amazon, host it, and then people start coming to your website and then grow from there. So the same thing can be said in this space as well. Yeah.
Thank you for that detailed answer, Adrian. I hope that answers your question. Just to quickly point out also for those who are asking about the Malaysian government stance on cryptocurrency, digital currencies, and whatnot. We did do a chat with Securities Commission just a couple of weeks back, so you can check back our archive for that interview. And actually, up next for the next episode, we'll be having Bank Negara to talk about a little bit about digital currencies as well. So those of you who've registered for this show later, I'll send an email which includes the link to the next episode. Now let's move on to some closing thoughts. TM, what are some other exciting things that is happening in the crypto space that we haven't talked about, or what are some of the exciting things that you're working on in CoinGecko that you want to share with the audience before we go?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of things that I'm watching in the crypto space. I think number
Mm,
one is the scalability issue and also the multi-chain universe, right? So I don't know how many people follow this or actually look into what's going on
mm,
behind the hood of crypto. But I think because of the recent surge in demand to use to use blockchain to do transactions and stuff like that, we are seeing that transaction fees are on the rise, and it's sort of like
mm,
excluding a good amount of people from using these services. So
mm, mm,
it is most likely the case that there will not be just one blockchain that will rule them all. Every blockchain has its own trade-offs and pros and cons, right? So there will be a world where there will be multiple blockchain coexisting. Either one of them will be good at decentralization, one of them will be government owned, one of them will be centralized, but they will all somehow be connected, and you can sort of move your assets around and take advantage of different attributes. So I think people are sort of like working on that, and at this point in time, building the infrastructure, and hopefully 2 years from now, we'll start to see ourselves using all these digital assets in a way that we can pay low fees and move assets around easily and do the things
mm,
that we need to do. So that's like one thing I'm excited about. Second one is I think blockchain games is still largely under the radar.
mm,
And with the concept of play to earn, giving gamers ownership of items or to be part of the game as well, to even like decide the direction of the game, of where the game would go. I think these are things that crypto or blockchain would probably fill in the gap, and it's still largely untapped. And I'm just constantly monitoring the space to see whether there is whether we'll go anywhere. Or not. Again, like how I said, NFT was started in 2016, 2017. It took like 4 or 5 years for us to see an explosion, right? So I guess for myself, I'm just like monitoring the industry, just looking and just to see like what's going on. I would say these two things are what's keeping me tapped for now. Yeah. So as for what we are doing in CoinGecko, we're just building every day. So I guess the price correction sort of help us give us a bit of breathing space because we've been getting like high server requests and whatnot. So that sort of help as well. But I guess for us, nothing really changed too much. Like again, we talk about a vision, a world where there will be millions of tokens represented in NFTs or fungible tokens, and we just want to build the infrastructure to aggregate and organize all this information so anyone can easily understand and get them.
Cool. Thank you. I really appreciate you sharing your thoughts with us today. And, to your point about maybe blockchain games taking rise, maybe one day we'll see Blizzard going into it, right? Who knows? With that, only leaves me. Sorry, you want to add something before we?
No, I'm just saying, like, who knows? The big guys will have to resort to it, right?
Yeah, for sure. So with that, it only leaves me to thank you for joining our show today. A lot of the guests were also quite appreciative of the insights that you had to share. Hope you guys enjoyed this session. Feel free to subscribe to our channel and have a safe rest of the day. I'll catch you guys soon. Take care now. Bye-bye.